Well, hello, you bunch of big, beautiful Americans. Paul Glasgow here, Legally on America, as always. Friday night gun news live. Get a beer if you don't have one, grab you one. Join us for a bit as we solve all the problems of the modern world and the crazy, whacked out, anti gun, anti constitutional world as we've seen things happening this week. As always, I am again your host, Paul Glasgow, and we are going to wait for a bunch of our friends to come into the room. And as always, I will greet you guys as you come in. I do have everything a little bit more ready today than what I typically do, so I'm more prepared for you guys. Let's see here. Let me get the camera angle a little bit right as you guys roll into the room. Maybe that's a little better. Hey, Brent Flash is in here. I've got a lot of stuff to kind of go over today, so I'm going to wait for a bunch of the guys to come in here. Sarasota Shaners is in here also. I'm going to go over some of the gun-related type news things that have happened so far this week. And I'll go into as much detail as I can. I have some of the things which they've changed already. The wording on some of these bills that kind of came out this week have changed a little bit already. So I'll have to update my notes a little bit because some of the things are, the changes are relatively noticeable, and you kind of understand why they did them. Let's see. Ty J is also in the room. What's up? Jay Griff's in the room. Daryl Romine is in the room. Brandon Hudson, Ryan Westall. And of course, to see you guys continue to roll in here. Richard Portell is in here. Good to see you. I'm going to wait just a brief moment before or wait for everybody to kind of get in the room. I will tell you that we have some kind of gun porn to go over tonight. That's going to be kind of cool. Some a new pistol that I have that's going to be hopefully shooting it this weekend. Most likely I will. Let's see. Let me get back to you guys. Robert Mutton's in here. What's up? Clay Nance is in here. Maurice Statham, the Archangel, Bob Blitheract, Robert Button, Danny Chang. What's up, Danny? John Winslaw. Good evening. First time watching on live. Good, John. Glad you could join us. I think you'll probably come back. This is kind of a cool little interactive thing that we do on Friday nights. It's a lot of fun. E-Boy 2600, Max Jenner, Clay Nance. I think I said that. Clang Langley. That's for the Glock advice. Picked up a G19 Monday. Good for you. Let's see. Max Jenner, Buzz Salmon, Jim Castle, Huge Ass Bear. Welcome back. Jerry Hargett, Robert Anderson, Benjamin Benedict. And you guys will keep rolling in. Tony Morano from Philly. Hey, Tony Morano from Philly. What's up, man? Anthony Neek, Fresh Fowler. I mean, you guys are just piling in the room right now. John Winslow, always trying to catch it, but I'm active duty and a single father, so my time is limited. Dude, thanks for your service, man, and thanks for trying to make it on here. Obviously, as a single dad and active duty, that's a heck of an accomplishment, and we're kind of glad that you could join us. So appreciate it, man. Again, that's John Winslow. George Washington, awesome gun porn. I'll light the scented candles. William Keller is in the room. Just Reviews in the room. Jim Casals in the room. Daryl Romine. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to get started on a couple things. We'll get into the gun porn here in a minute. I want to go real quick to a couple of, these are things we've already talked about. Some bills. We knew they were coming. We were warned about it as early as December of 2018. Knowing what was coming, and I've actually highlighted some things that I want to point out. We've got the House bill, H.R. 8, and the Senate bill, S. 42. They're pretty much identical bills. Just a real quick school rock lesson. The way things become laws is the House will propose a bill, so to speak, and I'm going to very much oversimplify this just for the sake of time, but the House will put forth a bill, and it has specific wording in it. If that bill passes the House, then it goes to the Senate. Now, if the Senate has the exact same wording in it, and they pass it, then it goes straight to the president's desk. However, if the Senate changes wording in the bill, then it has to go back to the House to approve the changes that the Senate made to the bill. It's kind of a stupid little thing, but I guess it makes sense to keep things consistent, to make sure that things don't get snuck into a bill through the Senate that the House wasn't okay with to begin with. So I kind of understand it, but it does. It's a way for politicians to slow bills down if they want to, by saying, yeah, I support the bill, but I want to add this. So any change the Senate makes goes back to the House. Well, if the House agrees with those changes, but makes some additional changes of their own, then it has to go back to the Senate again to approve that. So it can go back and forth before the president can actually ever get it. You know when something is being fast tracked, and what I mean by that is, you know, whenever it's being put forth to go through very, very quick, because the House will actually word something identically to what the Senate is actually working on too. So they're in conjunction, they're in cahoots, so to speak, with one another, clearly, because they don't by coincidence get the exact same wording. In this case, they have gotten the exact same wording. From what I can tell, I'm talking about from letter to number to Roman numeral, the S-42 and the H.R. 8 bill are word for word identical. So it's clear that this is something that they're trying to fast track through. And I've told you guys before that this is not a Democrat and Republican thing. Yes, they come into play, but the Republicans have become just as anti-gun as the Democrats have. So I'm not trying to make this into a political party thing, because I distrust the Republicans just as much as I do the Democrats. Well, I shouldn't say that. Not as much, because the Democrats are just blatantly over the top anti-gun, where the Republicans pretend to be pro-gun and they're not. So it is different. I shouldn't say that they're the same. I like to know who I shouldn't trust, and I know I don't trust the Democrats. The problem is we have Republicans that we're told we can trust, and we can't trust them. So I just want to make sure we understand that. There's some things going on right now that we've got the likes of Marco Rubio, who will turn on us in a heartbeat. Not even turn on Second Amendment people. He's not even on our side right now. I don't know what happened to Marco Rubio after the Parkland shooting last year, but he took a really strong turn to the left, and he's very, very anti-gun right now. I understand it hits close to home, but he's going to lose his seat as a result of his anti-gun moves. He's going to lose his seat. The only thing keeping Marco Rubio in place right now is name recognition. If no one knew who Marco Rubio was, he'd get voted out during the next senatorial election. So anyway, let me get into it real quick. I'd actually highlighted something here on my computer that I wanted you to see. H.R. 8 and Senate Bill 42 are, they're calling them, and this is the cushy name we've talked about before, the nice cotton candy rainbow colored names that they use. It's being cited as the Background Check Expansion Act. Sounds great, right? Because any normal law-abiding person wants background checks, right? Most of us are okay with background checks, right? So when you say that you're expanding background checks, it sounds really, really good. It sounds like something that every normal person should automatically want, right? What it needs to be cited as is not the Background Check Expansion Act. It needs to be cited as the Make Private Firearms Sales Illegal Act, because that's all it does. That's the only thing it's adding to anything. Let me go down into some of the meat of it real quick. Let me tell you that, let me get into the Senate bill's version has less corrections in it. It looks like what happened was the House bill was probably made first, and then they emailed it over to the Senate, and the Senate just used it word for word, because the House bill has a bunch of corrections and the Senate bill does not. Let's see. It shall be unlawful for any person who is not a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, licensed dealer to transfer a firearm to any other person who is not so licensed, unless a licensed importer, licensed manufacturer, or licensed dealer has first taken possession of the firearm for the purpose of complying with subsection T. Upon taking possession of a firearm under subparagraph A, a licensee shall comply with all requirements of this chapter as if the licensee were transferring the firearm from the inventory of the licensee to the unlicensed transferee. If a transfer of a firearm described in subparagraph A will not be completed for any reason after a licensee takes possession of the firearm, the transferee, the return of the firearm to the transferee by the licensee shall not constitute the transfer of firearm for the purpose of this chapter. Now that sounds, I'm just trying to get to this point. Paragraph 1, which is the fact that, let me find it. talking about how it can't be transferred between people. Paragraph 1 shall not apply. Here are your exemptions. Paragraph 1 shall not apply to, and I'm not going to read all this, but the law enforcement, any law enforcement agency, it's not going to apply to that. So law enforcement will be able to not just transfer amongst law enforcement, even though they're not licensed transferors or transferees. The law enforcement agencies will be able to have their officers carry their guns on their person without having to do an actual transfer from the law enforcement to that off-duty law enforcement officer. That's what the exemption for law enforcement means. I know it sounds kind of stupid. Well, why are they exempting law enforcement? Well, because law enforcement are not always on duty. So they're trying to keep off-duty law enforcement officers in legal possession of these guns. Now, that tells you how strict it's going to be on us non-law enforcement. Well, of course, I'm commissioned, but anybody that's non-law enforcement, it shows you that the intent is going to be pretty stringent because they're having to make these exclusions for law enforcement to still be able to carry their guns on their persons outside of being on duty. So that tells you the teeth that are going to be in here. It also exempts a transfer. This is where I don't understand it, because the wording, guys, is going to be specific enough to where you think this is okay. In other words, most of you law-abiding gun owners out there are going to think that subsection B here is going to be okay. Let me read it to you. It's also shall not apply to B, a transfer that is a loan or bona fide gift between, now let me read these, between spouses, domestic partners, parents and their children, siblings, aunts or uncles and their nieces or nephews, or between grandparents and their grandchildren. So they're saying that they're exempting a loan or a gift. Here again, guys, if they're exempting or pointing out specifically that they're going to exempt a loan between basically family members, is essentially what they're pointing out, then that means that non-family members will not be able to loan firearms. I repeat, guys, you will not be able to loan a firearm unless you are loaning it to a husband or wife, a girlfriend or boyfriend, which, I mean, I guess we could all say that now we're transgendered or whatever you want to call it. And, you know, that's my boyfriend and I just loaned him the gun. I guess you could do that. Maybe you got to prove. I hope you don't have to prove that that's your boyfriend. Between parents and their children. So parents can loan children a gun. Between siblings, so I can loan my brother a gun, but not my friend. Between aunts or uncles and their nieces or nephews. So aunts and uncles can only loan nieces and nephews. Notice it doesn't say cousins in here. And I'm serious. I'm not joking about this. It does not say cousins. Or between grandparents and their grandchildren. Again, it does not say cousins. I'm not making this up. It points out these specific family members that you will be able to, quote, loan a gun to, but not your cousin. And I'm not making a joke out of that. You know, you hear people say, oh, that's my cousin. Well, you know, we can sit here and count down the family tree, your first cousins, your second cousins, your third cousins, your fourth cousins. You know, think about how far that list and that lineage can go in terms of that's my cousin. They don't put that in here for a very specific reason because they're trying to limit this. So they're only going to allow, let me simplify this. They're only going to allow spouses to loan guns, share guns, domestic partners, girlfriends, boyfriends, parents and their children, siblings, aunts, uncles to their nieces and nephews, or grandparents and to their grandchildren. So friends, out of the question. That's not going to happen. Now, let me go down here a little bit further down. And they do include something else that I want to point out. They will also exempt transfer to an executor, administrator, trustee, which that makes sense. I mean, it's almost the same thing. It's basically just in terms of a guardian or something like that. Let's see, shall not apply to a temporary transfer that is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. Okay, let me try to explain this a little bit as I understand it. Nobody has explained this to me, so I'm just trying to read through the legal speak of our great minds in Washington, D.C. right now. Okay, it's going to exempt a temporary transfer that is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. What that means is, is that if you, remember we talked, as luck would have it, I've got it right here, Senate Bill number 7. Remember we talked about that? Confiscation of arms, the red flag gun laws and all that. There is actually a red flag gun law built into this thing that makes it okay for somebody to confiscate your guns, which would make it a transfer, so to speak. Look, I'm not making this up. This is in here. It exempts that transfer. So now you don't have to have an actual transfer to go to get a background check if you're taking somebody's guns from them. Taking someone's guns from them because it's to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. If the possession by the transferee lasts only as long as immediately necessary to prevent the imminent death or great bodily harm. So you can take somebody's guns from them without filling out a background check as long as you're doing it in the name of preventing great bodily harm. How awesome is that? What a beautiful loophole to create right there that now makes it okay for theft. You don't think this is going to be used in court? I took that gun from my neighbor because I thought they were going to do themselves great bodily harm. Again, guys, these are a lot of attorneys putting this crap together in here. I'm just telling you what I'm reading in the bill. Again, this is Senate Bill S42. You need to go read it. Other exemptions are, I don't even know how this will never apply to me. A transfer that is approved by the Attorney General. Let's see. They also exempt a temporary, this is interesting. And this is where I highlighted this because I'm a little bit concerned with this. It exempts a temporary transfer if the transferor has no reason to believe that the transferee will use or intends to use a firearm in a crime or is prohibited from possessing firearms under state or federal law, and the transfer takes place and the transferee's possession of the firearm is exclusively for. Now, this is where it aggravates me, guys. You know how we always hear, I'm going to go into this in a minute. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I want to preface this before I read this. You know how we always hear these stupid arguments that the Second Amendment is for hunting? Like, who needs an AR-15? Because nobody needs an AR-15 from hunting. One of the stupidest arguments in the history of gun control. Very stupid argument, because the Second Amendment has, excuse my French, dick to do with hunting. Nothing to do with hunting. The Second Amendment has zero to do with hunting. Never has, never will. It is not a hunting amendment. The Second Amendment doesn't specify hunting. It doesn't mention hunting. It doesn't care about hunting. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. But it's constantly thrown in our face that because a lot of us use guns for hunting, that for some reason, that's all they're for. Guys, I use my gun a whole lot less for hunting than I do putting it on my hip so that I can protect myself and my family. There's 365 days a year that I use my gun, and I'm serious, to protect my family. Shooting a gun is not protecting your family. Having a gun is protecting your family. I do it daily, every single day. I probably hunt 20 days out of the year, maybe 30 days out of the year, but 365 days out of the year, I protect my family with mine. I'm tired of this hunting crap from the left that somehow or another the Second Amendment was designed for hunting. It's not. It's totally not. So anyway, they're trying to poison everybody's minds to somehow or another change the narrative and make people think that if you're not hunting with your gun, then you have your gun for other reasons that you don't need to have it for. Okay, so there's an exemption here that allows you to transfer a gun to somebody else if you have no reason to believe that the transferee will use it or intends to use the firearm in a crime or is prohibited from possessing firearms, blah, 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 blah. You can loan the gun if you are at a shooting range. Now, I'm specifying this because I want you to understand the language here. If they're saying that you can loan a gun to a friend while you are both at the shooting range, you know what that means? Again, in legal speak here, in lawyer terminology, if they specify a specific place that you can do a certain thing, that means that any other place not mentioned is illegal. Seriously. If they tell you that you can eat a popsicle in your living room, if they pass a law saying popsicles are allowed to be eaten in living rooms, what that means is only in living rooms. You see what I mean? If they specify, if they specify a place that you can do something, if they point out one place that you can do something, that means that is the only place that you can do that thing. All those other places that are not mentioned are not mentioned for a reason, because those places it's illegal to do whatever you're wanting to do that's specified in the bill. That's what they're talking about here. They're specifying a shooting range or a shooting gallery or other area designated for purpose of target shooting that you can loan a friend a gun. So you both got to be there. So now that's legal to do that. So you're thinking, oh, that's great. We can do this at a gun range. No, it means you can't do it anywhere else. It means you absolutely can't, or you're violating the law. The second part of that exemption is, or while reasonably necessary for the purpose of hunting, trapping, or fishing. If the transferor has no reason to believe that transferee intends to use a firearm in a place where it's illegal and has reason to believe that transferee will comply with all licensing and permit requirements for such hunting, trapping, or fishing. Here we go. So you actually can loan a person a gun for hunting or trapping or whatever. Nowhere in here. Now I'm getting to something here. I know sometimes I go in circles and I apologize for that. It doesn't say anywhere in here that you can loan a gun to somebody for self-defense. Nowhere in here. You know, if you took my hunting rights away from me, I'd be pissed off, but I'd get by. I'm not suggesting you take my hunting rights away. I'm just saying, if you took my hunting rights away, I would probably get over it. If you try to take my right to defend myself or my family away from me, we're going to have a problem. I'm not getting over it. Laws like this are a direct infringement on poor people. Oh, I know, I'm a conservative. You can't possibly care about poor people. Kiss my ass. If you're a liberal and you're on here, kiss my white ass, because I don't fall for that. You can't guilt me into something by telling me something like that. Poor people are the number one people that will be disenfranchised by this, because they're the ones who can't now afford this new background check. Background checks are not going to be free. They're not free now. Most of your places that you want to transfer a gun from, an online purchase or something like that, which you have to do a background check for anyway, outside of what the Democrats think that somehow another online purchases mean you just get on Amazon, order a gun, and they ship it to your door. Doesn't work like that, guys. That's all a lie. So now all of a sudden, if I purchase something and there's a transfer, I expect to go to that FFL dealer and pay a transfer fee of $25, $35, something like that. Guys, these are people, and Jarrett's on here. Let me get back over here to the live stream so I can read your comments. Jarrett's on here. Jay Griff is on here. Jay Griff, for one, is a guy that I know that works at a local gun shop down here. I don't know what these guys charge for their transfers, but right now transfers are relatively cheap. Relatively cheap. 20 to 35 bucks is typically the range that I see it in. If suddenly you mandate transfers for all this other crap out there that is not necessary, most people are law-abiding people. Most people will still follow the law. Most people are still going to say, well, I think it's bullcrap, but if you want me to transfer this gun, I'm going to follow the law because I don't want my gun rights stripped from me, because now all of a sudden I'm going to be made a felon based on these stupid gun laws. So the average person is going to follow these laws. What that means is there's going to be an overabundance now of these transfers that are going to take place at all these local gun shops. It's not going to be at Academy or wherever. It's going to be these local gun shops right around the corner, the same place that some of these jerks don't shop at normally because they go to their Academy and these big box stores and buy crap. They're not going to want to stand in line at these big box stores, so they're going to go to all the local gun shops. Now these local gun shops are going to have to take these transfers. See, a local gun shop, any gun shop, doesn't have to do a transfer if they're not selling you a gun. It's not law. I mean, if you go into there and say, hey, I want to have a gun shipped here, what's your transfer fee? That local gun shop can simply say, we don't do transfers like that. Go somewhere else. They don't have to do it. The government will put pressure on these local gun stores to they'll mandate that they have to supply that. Well, what's going to happen, guys? I mean, think about it. I'm a small business owner. If you burden me with something that I don't make any money off of, so if Billy is now transferring his gun to Bobby, they're giving it to one another. Billy's giving it to Bobby. There's no money involved. So now they're going to have to come to my shop and they're going to expect me to make that transfer for them. Well, I can't do it for free. I'm not making any money off the transfer anyway. Oh, I know it's horrible. Paul wants to make money. No, you know what I want to do? I want to pay for my friggin' overhead. I want to pay for the lease of the building that I have. I want to pay for the employees that I'm paying payroll to. I want to pay for my friggin' light bill. I want to pay for my insurance. I want to pay for my workers' comp. I want to pay for all the crap that I'm already having to pay for. And now you want me to do a transfer for hundreds of these new people, possibly thousands, and you want me to do it for free? No, it's not going to happen. Guess what? Now I'm going to have to staff up. Now I'm going to have to hire another person because I have so many transfers that are burdening my guys that are working in my shop. That now guess what? Your transfer is not 30 bucks. It's 50 now. Next week, whenever it keeps going up, it's 75 bucks. I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's poor people. Poor people are going to get thrown in jail or go even more broke than what they already are because they're not going to pay these massive transfer fees that now are going to be placed on all these people. It's not going to happen. They're simply not going to pay that. They don't have the money. They need protection because of the garbage areas that they're living in, because crime is rampant in these areas. So they need personal protection for themselves and their families, but they can't afford to make the transfer because they already got to buy the gun. Maybe they were given the gun, but they already got to either buy it or they're gonna get the gun from somebody. They can't afford this exorbitant amount. They probably can't afford the 30 bucks, let alone the 75 or 100 bucks. That might be a new transfer fee. So it's gonna be poor people. I'm not saying that I'm gonna be okay with it. I'm not okay with it. I get transfers from gun companies all the time. I get guns sent to me to do reviews on. Now, who's gonna pay that transfer? Is the gun company sending it to me to do the transfer now going to make me pay for it? Probably. So it's likely that now all these guns that get sent to me, now I'm going to have to pay that fee on that. And I expect to be charged the fee. I don't expect to be treated any differently than anybody else. But that's a fee that I didn't have before. So back to the poor people. You know what that's going to do? It's going to force most of them to say, screw that. I'm not going down to the local gun shop, pay that. Nobody sees this transaction. Let's just make the transaction. Now, in many cases, that's going to be perfectly fine. And let me take a sip of my beer because I'm getting wound up here. In many cases, and I'm not encouraging this because, and I'm saying I'm not encouraging it because that's my disclaimer right here in case anybody ever comes back and looks at this video later on in case this bill passes. I'm officially on record saying I'm not encouraging this. However, if it were me, I wouldn't go to the local gun shop. Let me tell you why. Because the government will have to tell on themselves at some point, is there a true gun registration? I know what we're all thinking. We go to the gun store, we fill out a 4473. For those of you that don't know, that's a background check form. We fill the 4473 out. 4473 gets entered or it gets called in, to the NICS system. The NICS system supposedly has no record of that transaction whatsoever, none of the gun. They just know you called in. They know that there was a background check being performed. However, all that information about that particular gun that you are buying at that very moment is captured on that form 4473. The serial number, the type of gun it is, whether it's a long gun or a handgun, all that is captured on the 4473, which the firearms seller, the dealer, the FFL dealer at that point, has to sit on and maintain for I don't know how many years. Those of you that are FFLs on here will know, I don't know, was it 5 years, 15 years, whatever it is filed away. So a hard copy of it is kept by the person who sold you the gun, not the ATF, not the federal government, or anybody like that. So there is technically a paper trail that ties you to that. So technically, if you sold that gun later on after this law was passed, if you sold it to somebody and did not do a background check and let's say that gun wound up in a crime somewhere, and they trace that serial number back to the gun dealer, let's go all the way back. If they trace that gun serial number back to the manufacturer says that serial number was sold to this distributor. That distributor says, I sold that gun to this gun store. The gun store now will have you on file on an actual paperwork of your 4473. They go back through their files and they find, I sold Paul Glasgow that gun. So even though there's technically not a registrar that has all this stuff logged in there and a true record back at the government, if the government wants to know who owns this gun, they can easily find out. They just got to trace it back through there. So there technically is a registration of guns out there. It's just a real archaic quasi registration of it. That's how it's done. So you could technically get in trouble for that illegal transfer. However, you kind of have time on your side, because you could always say, I sold that gun to so-and-so before all this stupid law went into effect. You see what I'm saying? So there's not going to be a way for them to know. Again, if there's no true registration, there's not going to be a way for anyone to know if that gun truly was transferred at any given time before, because technically they're not supposed to know when that gun or who that gun was purchased by in the first place. Now, I know this is true about being able to trace it back, and this is a very strange story that I'm going to tell you guys real quick. I went to SHOT Show about 4 or 5 years ago. I always travel with a gun. And this is going to sound kind of funny, but I always travel with my least favorite handgun. You want me to tell you why? Because I'm dealing with government employees. The TSA are a bunch of jackasses, and it's very likely that they are going to lose my stuff or steal it, because they're known for doing that. I always carry the gun that I dislike the most. The gun, I look at my guns and I'm like, which gun can I do without, and I'm not going to feel emotionally affected by that in a negative way. Well, this particular year, it happened to be an XDS, a Springfield Army XDS. I had one sent to me by Springfield. I did my review on it. The gun was okay. I didn't have a serious problem with it. It's just too bulky. It's not something I would carry. It was their slim model, single stack, just not something that I would have carried on a regular basis. So I flew over to Vegas with my Springfield XDS. While I'm there, there's a guy for another firearms company that we were drinking a beer with one night, and he's talking about the Springfield XDS, how bad he wants to get one. I kind of sit there and I go, really? That's the gun you really, really want? Okay, I got one in my hotel room. How bad do you want it? Long story short, the dude bought the thing from me. I don't know, 300, 400 bucks. I don't know what it was. It was less than what I paid for it. But I was like, this isn't a gun I got to have. So if I sell it to somebody, big deal. I got more money I can throw on a blackjack table or buy a beer with or whatever. I got more money. So I sold it to the guy. Probably, I don't know, within that year. And this is a nice guy too, by the way. I don't know what other stories went on behind the scenes, but we had mutual friends. There was a bunch of us hanging out one night that took place. So everybody got to see what was going on. I get a phone call from the local gun store that had received that gun from me, or for me, and transferred it to me. So they had the 4473. They had the background check done on that gun. They called me up and they said, hey man, did you sell that Springfield XDS to somebody? I was like, yeah. Why? The ATF is calling. I was like, really? What's the ATF calling for? Check this out. The guy that I sold the gun to killed himself with that gun. I'm not proud of it, but he killed himself with the gun. Now, there's a lot more to the story than that. There was some stuff that I don't know what he had done, but some stuff that the FBI went to his work, to his office. And somehow or another, something, I don't know, I wouldn't say a struggle ensued, but they went outside. And when they went outside, this guy went into his car where my gun was that I had sold, or his gun that I had sold to him, took the gun out and shot himself in the head, killed himself in front of the FBI agents. And they exactly did what I just described to you. They took the gun, They called Springfield. Springfield Armory told them this distributor is who we sold the gun to. They called the distributor. The distributor said, this is the gun store that we transferred the gun to. And when they called the gun store flipped through their 4473s and found my name on it and said, did Paul Glasgow have this gun stolen from him, or was this a legal sale? So my point to you is, there again is a very caveman-like archaic registration existing already. It happens. So if you make that illegal transfer, that new illegal transfer to a friend or a family member or something like that, if that gun winds up in a crime and they trace it back, your only defense is going to be that transfer took place before this law went into place. Otherwise, it's an illegal transfer. So that's my point. It's not, this is not cool. This is a messed up law right here. It's going to outlaw you doing a lot of things that you are normally okay with. And again, I'm going to go back to how pissed off I am that this law mentions nothing outside of hunting as far as why somebody should be able to transfer a gun to somebody else. You know, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. So many more people use firearms to protect themselves and their families on a daily basis versus those that use them for hunting. And I'm not knocking the hunters out there. Again, I'm a hunter myself. But hunting is not why I'm so pro Second Amendment. Not at all. Hunting never made me be a pro Second Amendment supporter. The right to defend myself did. And that's because it's specifically and explicitly written in the Constitution of the United States of America. I am so tired of these politicians in Washington writing bills and completely not only sidestepping the Second Amendment, but trying to interject things like hunting in there to try to change the narrative that you should only have a gun for hunting. Not once are they mentioned in here about a transfer being done for the sake of protecting somebody, protecting the human life of somebody. They're okay with you transferring a gun to kill an animal, which blows my mind that they're okay with that. But not one time do they mention in here that you would be exempted if you were transferring a gun to somebody else for the sake of saving their life or their children's lives. That's what our politicians do, guys. They completely sidestep the most obvious common sense things that's in our faces as normal people, as the little people. These are real life problems that we face. You know why they don't think that a gun might be transferred for the sake of public safety or the sake of self-defense? And I'm going to tell you why. Think about it. Who's writing these bills? Who's writing them? Politicians, right? Senators, congressmen, right? Now, they get their rich friends to take them out and go hunting. They get these major corporations, Democrats and Republicans. They get these major corporations to spend all this money and take them out on these big, extravagant hunting trips. So naturally, hunting makes perfect sense to them because that's a lobbying thing for them. You know what they don't have to worry about? They don't have to worry about self-defense. That's why it's not in here. The hunting is close in their mind because, hey, I don't want to give up on my hunting. Don't forget, we got hunting that we have to make sure that we protect the hunters out there. But they don't think about the little people like you and I because they don't have those problems. That's not a DC problem. That's not a political problem. That's a little people problem. So it's not even in their mindset. They're not thinking about anybody needing a gun for self-defense because they're thinking, I don't have that problem. So it never crosses their mind that you and I might actually need a transfer, a legal transfer, without these stupid background checks. Because guess what? My friend just moved into a neighborhood over here and now he needs protection, but I can't give him protection unless I plan on going out and forking out the money for a background check that one of us might not be able to afford. And suddenly he's just left without, or she's left without any kind of protection whatsoever. Guys, that's the problems I have with this kind of crap. You can say what you want that, oh, well, I mean, at least they included some transfers to some people. At least you can give a gun to your son or whatever. You know what? You know why they did that? Because we've been complaining about these stupid universal background checks they keep whining about for so long that all it is a a way to make illegal private sales. This is their way of saying, we're not making private sales illegal. We're not making gifting a firearm to somebody illegal. That's what this is about. Now they can fight back on when we say that and say, no, our bill allows that. It's typical politispeak because, yes, their bill allows it for some people, not everybody. Their bill is going to allow it for spouses, domestic partners, parents and their children, siblings, aunts and uncles and their nieces and nephews, and between grandparents and their children. So, yeah, we allow. I mean, our bill allows for private transfers. What are you talking about? And then they won't answer your question. I'm so disgusted by politicians that it makes me absolutely sick to even talk about some of this stuff because they're not on our level. They're not. They go into a job making $170-something thousand a year, and 2 years later they're freaking millionaires because they're legally bribed in every way. This is not just Democrats. It ain't just Republicans. It's all of them. They leave millionaires. They go in there as paupers and they leave out of there as millionaires. It's bullcrap, guys. The same rules do not apply to them. The same rules do. They keep talking about this stupid white privilege that I don't know of. Let's talk about political privilege, because political privilege is a thing. It is a real life thing. They have a privilege that we will never have, and they will never experience the things that we experience ever again in their lives, ever. Do you know that politicians, and I don't know if any of you on here are politicians, they have to serve, we're talking about the federal government here, they have to serve, I believe, it might be one full term, or if not, it's two. It's either 1 or 2 terms as a senator or a representative. And then after that, guess what they get? You know what they get? They get a lifetime pension. They get whatever that pay was when they left forever. Forever. Ever and ever. Ever, meaning when they die, they stop getting it. What kind of job do you have like that? Obamacare? How many of you are getting screwed over by Obamacare? Guess what? Politicians don't have it. They exempted themselves out of that whenever they wrote the bill. Beautiful, right? Obamacare is great for everybody else except for the politicians that put it in law. Now they put bills like this out here. I'm so tired of the whole us and them thing because there is a huge gap between us poor little old paupers, the eat cake people, and those people at the top that are the kings and the queens of this country. We may not have official kings and queens, but we got kings and queens in this country. Washington, D.C. is a dump. It's a cesspool. I saw last week where Ted Cruz put forth a term limit bill. Okay, number one, I got no problem with Ted. Ted's full of crap. Ted knows it's not going to pass. Ted doesn't really mean it. That's not very genuine when you put forth a bill like that. Now, if you get 100 people in Congress to co-sponsor the bill, I'll listen to you. But when you just put forth a bill like that, look, man, he probably went to everybody and said, look, guys, I'm going to put this thing forward. Don't vote on this. It's not genuine. It'll never happen. It looks great. It makes people like Ted. It's so disingenuous when you do something like that. We need term limits about like we need a border wall. We need it bad. And we'll never get them, not in our lifetime. How beautiful is it that people who can vote themselves a pay raise are also the people who can either vote themselves in term limits or not? How in the world did we ever get to a point where we put limits on our president, but we don't put limits on everybody else in a third legislative body out there? How do we have, we have limits on the president, but not on Congress and not on the Supreme Court? Now, the Supreme Court's a little bit different because I think the reasoning behind that is that they don't want politics to be involved with the Supreme Court. Who believes that, right? Who believes that politics aren't in play every time a Supreme Court justice is nominated and put forth? So it's silly that the House and the Senate do not have term limits. We should have that because I promise you one thing. You know what we would have if we had term limits? All these turncoat Republicans out there, like Marco Rubio, who are now hiding behind these stupid little gun laws out there, would now have to pick a side. Because this guy needs his, let's say 2 terms and you get your pension. He needs both terms. You know, a guy like that, he's never going to get, I say he's never going to get voted out. He should be voted out based on his turn against guns now. But again, the name recognition is so strong. The American public, for the most part, is really stupid or are really stupid. Here I am telling people they're stupid and I'm using improper grammar. The American public are relatively stupid. They vote, a lot of them, based on who they're told to vote for. They're group thinkers. They don't usually think for themselves. They're either not smart enough or they're too lazy to actually do their own research on candidates. So whoever their neighbor or their coworker tells them they should vote for because of whatever class they belong to. Oh, I'm middle class. Oh, I'm poor. I'm black. Oh, I'm white. I'm old. I'm young. So I should vote this way, right? Some people are too stupid to make their own minds up. And I say some, come on, guys. Y'all know as well, Barack Obama got reelected. There's a lot of stupid people in America. These people are just too stupid to vote on their own. And that's what's happening, is that these politicians know that, and they prey on these people. They prey on the stupid people out there. The biggest friend to stupid voters out there are political memes. I mean, seriously, when you go on Facebook or wherever and you see a political meme, that's almost like writing a 500-word news article from a reputable magazine. People will take a meme and run with it so fast. How many of these incorrect, stupid memes have you seen about Trump, for instance? You know, I saw incorrect memes about Hillary Clinton. And believe me, I'm no supporter of Hillary Clinton. I even saw things that weren't true about her. God knows there's plenty that is true. You don't have to make stuff up about Hillary Clinton. There's enough dirt and garbage on her to not have to make anything up, but they were still making things up. So again, back to my original point, these gun laws like this, like again, HR 8 and S42, they're so unconstitutional, but they write in these bills these specific things. We got to make sure that we don't fall into these traps that somehow or another, just because the bill sounds okay, that it must somehow or another be okay. No, I go back to these bills are written by attorneys and politicians. And when they specify a particular thing, they're purposely excluding everything else. So don't think that just because this bill sounds warm and fuzzy and innocent, that somehow or another, all these other things must be okay, right? No, they're not okay. If they were not specified as being something that is exempted or included in this bill, then it's against the law. It will be against the law. We've got to be conscious of that, guys. Before I get to y'all's questions, let me show you guys something that I got this past week that I'm excited to actually do a video on. This is the Arcon Firearms Type B gun. It's a beautiful gun. It's very, very well made. If you look at it, you can just tell. I know what you're thinking. It's another striker-fired gun. This is a gun that I've been looking at for well over a year, and it took these guys forever to put this thing in production. It ships as is with the flat trigger, as you can see, with 4 magazines, and it's got a wonderful trigger. I mean, a really good trigger. It's got a little bit of travel at the beginning. Let me show you. See the travel on this thing? But then it breaks beautifully. I think with time and a little bit of firing this thing, it's probably going to fire really nicely and probably take some of that creep and that over travel up a little bit and make it more of a hitting a wall before it breaks. It's probably what it's going to do, because most of your guns, there's a little bit of break-in period. Anybody tells you no gun ever has to be broken in, it's full of crap. They don't shoot enough, because you usually can feel that travel in your trigger. Some of it goes away after shooting a lot because those parts get worn in a good way, and they take up that little bit of grittiness that's in there. And where maybe something is rubbing even on the sides, like if it pivots backwards, it might be rubbing on the side. And that part of it right there on the side gets worn down to where it doesn't drag anymore. So you don't have that weird little, okay, I think it's hit the wall right there, and then it goes a little bit more before it actually fires. In many cases, most guns are going to be like that, especially striker fires. The way they're made on the inside, there's so many moving parts on the inside of that striker fire mechanism that in most cases, there's a lot of parts that are rubbing against one another. And after, I don't know, 100 or so shots, you're usually going to notice that trigger start to really come together and work a little bit better. So I'm excited for this thing here. I really feel like um, it's going to be a beautiful shooting gun because it feels so good. Now, I've shot them before, just for full disclosure. I've shot them in Vegas for the last 2 years. Archon is out there, or Arcon, I'm sorry, has been out there at range day during SHOT Show every year. There's things that they talk about, and let me get a Glock to show you, that are supposed to be different about this thing. It was Arsenal Firearms, I believe, out of Italy that actually originally made this thing, and now Arcon Firearms here in the United States are the ones that are producing it. So there's some other renderings of it that have happened. And of course, it got kind of completely rebuilt by, if you remember Salient Arms. I don't know if Salient Arms still does the thing like, kind of like ZevTech does. You know how ZevTech takes these Glocks and they jazz them up and all that. Well, Salient Arms is one of the companies that would take Glocks, Benelli shotguns and all that and really go through these things and, you know, mill out some things on them and do some really cool stuff, put new barrels in them, new bolts in them and all that kind of stuff, and really jazz these things up nicely. Well, Salient Arms pretty much rebuilt this thing whenever, and again, I think it was Arsenal or something like that from Italy. They basically took that and Arcon took over and Salient rebuilt the thing for them. So Salient has a hand in this, hence why you see the nice milling in the slide, why it looks so good here. Some of the decoration in the slide, you notice the texturing on the actual frame itself looks really, really nice. A lot of that is because Salient got involved and had some hand in here. So that's why you notice this thing has a really nice look to it, because Salient's known for putting out some really nice guns. However, it's supposed to have an extremely low bore axis. And I'm not going to get into too much of the bore axis talk right now, but as you guys know, let's take a Glock, for instance. You know, a standard bore axis is right here. What that means is that's where the barrel is. You see the barrel's right here, the muzzle. You see the muzzle sticking out right there. So the barrel's roughly about right there. That means that whenever this thing is fired, that your force goes backwards right here, this way. So placement of your hand right here, if your if your slide is going back and the force is right there, if you notice it's above my grip, and it may seem real minuscule, but however close this bore is to my hand, the closer it is, the less recoil. The higher that bore is this way means the higher the chance that that thing is above my hand, and just from sheer physics, you're going to get muzzle rise and muzzle flip like that. So you want your bore to be as close embedded into your hand as possible. Now, it's never going to be directly into your hand because it has to go backwards, right? The thing has to go like that before it can actually fire the round. So everybody's challenge is how close you can get your hand to the actual slide without the slide hitting your hand. That's why you're going to notice the beaver tail on most of your guns. Well, Arcon has done a pretty remarkable job. Look at the difference between the guns. Look at the Glock, if you can see it. If you notice, look how skinny the slide is up here on this Arcon. Look at that. Look how little bit of material that you have on that frame before you get the slide, and look how much smaller that slide is than Glock. And I don't want you to think that I'm playing games here. Let me clear both of these guns. Every gun in here is cleared, but I'm about to point these guns at myself. I really don't want to point a loaded gun at myself. Let me show you something here. See if you can see this. Can you see the difference in the slides? Look at where the slide, let me get it where you guys can see it. I apologize. Look at where the slide meets the frame. The Glock is on your left, I suppose. This is the Glock over here. Look at how much bigger the slide is. You know what that also means? Not only is it higher, not only is your bore axis higher, but you have a heavier slide, which means what? More mass. That means more recoil. So the smaller your slide is, the less mass you have, and the lower it's going to sit in your hand, which means the less recoil you're going to have. So you're not going to have as much recoil and muzzle flip, so your follow-up shot's going to be a heck of a lot more accurate because you're controlling this bad boy a whole lot easier than you are this one. That's all in theory, and that's physics. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I just know how this stuff works. Let's see if it actually transfers to the actual gun range whenever I shoot this thing. It probably will. I'm just saying, I mean, it sounds great and it looks good. And I've noticed some guns that have really low bore axis like that do make a difference in follow-up shots. So this one should. It absolutely should. I mean, I looked at a bunch of things on this thing, and I'm very, very impressed. You can probably see the difference in the mass on the slides right here. Look at where the slide meets the frame. You see how much more Glock is sticking up? See what I mean? So the Glock is going to have a larger slide, heavier slide, and a higher muzzle up on the towards the top of that slide, which is going to tend to push that whole firearm backwards in your hand. So anyway, I expect it to be pretty cool. I mean, I'm really looking forward to shooting this thing. I mean, I've wanted it for a while. Finally got one. These guys are actually sending me they're actually making their own holsters now. Man, you talk about nice, high quality looking holsters. They're expensive. I don't mind telling you, they are expensive. I looked at their holsters, and I know good holsters are you know, can cost money, but I've seen some of their holsters are like 60, 70, 80 bucks for a holster. So I'm not telling you to rush out and buy one. I'm just telling you I've seen them, I've handled them, and they're very, very nice holsters. So we shall see. I'll have the holster next week, and I'll be able to share that with you guys. I'll put it through the ringer, see what it's like, and all that good stuff. One thing that I did notice, yeah, and I'll show this in my video. This is something I noticed today. I grabbed this thing, this Arkon, and I just, if you notice, see the undercut underneath the trigger guard right there, how high that undercut is? Now that's supposed to be a good thing, and I do consider it a good thing because that also sends the hand farther up so that it puts buries that bore axis further down into your hand because you're able to get higher because your hand is not stopped by the trigger guard. However, if you grab a Glock, if you notice, now I know your thumb is supposed to hit the slide release, but if you notice, my finger stays pretty good below the, if I'm just weak handing this thing, I don't have a support hand. If I just grab it like this, if you notice, my middle finger is close to that mag release, but it's not on it. I grabbed this thing earlier today, and look at this. Look where my finger falls. Can you see that? My finger falls, this middle finger is going to fall. Now, actually, I had to, just so you know, I had to manipulate my finger to make it push. Right now, I can't press it. Even though I'm on it, I have to move my finger a little bit, but I can drop that magazine with my middle finger, hitting it on this side. If you're in a high rate of fire, a high stress situation, I don't want my middle finger. You know, I know in most cases you're shooting like this. I get it. But my middle finger is still right there. Is my middle finger now going to get pressed by my support hand and push that even more into it? It's the only thing that worries me. That's the only negative I have right now. And it may not matter. It may not make any difference whatsoever. And it probably won't. But I did notice when I grabbed that thing earlier today, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I got a fistful of mag release right now. That didn't make me feel good knowing my thumb was up in the air like this, and it was my finger that was actually pressing on that. So we'll see. We'll see when I do the full review what it actually does. So let's see. I'm sorry. I'm going to go to y'all's questions real quick. Let's see. Okay. Accelerator Magazine's asking pistol name. Pistol name is Arkon. It's Archon. Can you see that? Probably not. It's Arcon Firearms. This is actually called the Type B. Where is it? Right here. Yeah. It's called the Type B. That's the name of it. Let me tell you why it's a Type B. This is all going to be my video. This is the middle. Like, say this is a subcompact Glock. Eventually, they'll have a Type C. This will be the Type C. This is the middle. This is like your mid-form, say like a Glock 19. So this is the B. And say like your Glock 17 in this model will be the Type A. They don't have a Type A yet. They actually started out with a Type B. The Type B is the Glock 19. The Type C will be the Glock 26 and 9mm. And your Type A will be, of course, your Glock 17. So that's why they're named like that. But yeah, MSRP, Man, MSRP right now is probably, well, MSRP is always higher than what the actual gun costs, but you're gonna find, excuse me, you're gonna find that you'll probably get it for about $800, $700 or $800. MSRP is probably about $900 if I had to guess. Don't lose your stuff though. I have a very good feeling that it's going to be a nice gun. I don't know. We'll see. Are people going to pay $800 or $900 for a really nice Glock 19? I don't know. But I'll say this: it's nicer than a Glock 19 without being shot yet. The trigger feels really good. I do like the concept of the low bore axis, all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. You know, the jury will be out tomorrow. I'll go shoot it tomorrow. Let's see, guys. Let me go off some of y'all's stuff right now. John Winslow says, this is off topic, but my main firearms experiences with the M4 and M9 and some crew served. What's your opinion on the MK18 build for home defense? Shoot, jump on it. I'd love to have an MK18 for home defense. I think that's a good deal. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, Bob says, Paul, just say it. All three branches of our government have united against we the people in direct violation of the Constitution. There's no doubt. You know, no one has ever accused Donald Trump of being a constitutionalist. Yeah, I voted for the guy, and you know, considering the alternatives, I'd vote for him again. But my gosh, we are on our own as far as the Second Amendment goes. Jeez. I'm trying to scroll back up some of you guys' comments and questions, and I apologize. I had a lot to go over tonight, and I haven't looked at y'all stuff hardly at all, man. That's my bad on that. Ralph McDaniel says, what do I think of the Beretta APX? We'll find out. Sometimes you guys ask questions at just the right time. I will be doing, if I can get the friggin' case open. You got to read directions sometimes instead of just manhandling it. Talking about this. I'll be doing a video on, and I better do it soon because it's starting to heat up down here in Louisiana weather. A lot of these guns behind me, I don't even know why they're sitting up here because I didn't put them up there for any particular reason, but they are the guns that the handgun program with the military government, the American government, military, some plans and bull crap that they were doing where they were just trying to decide what their next weapon would be handgun wise, and they chose this. And which brought us this too. I've pretty much gotten all the guns. I have gotten all the guns. I've gotten the top 7 guns. The only gun that I have not gotten, and this, the only gun that I have not gotten that was in the top 8 of that contest is that STI. I forget what they called the STI. It's not a true STI. It had the STI name on it. It was made by somebody else, but STI did have an entry into that whole contest. Of course, didn't win. And yeah, that's the only gun I don't have, but it's not a production gun. They just don't have it. You know what I mean? I'd have to get somebody to loan me one because it's not one for sale. So anyway, I don't have that one, but I do have the top 7 guns that were in that MHS testing for the 17 that the government ended up calling the whatever 17, MH17 or whatever they call it, M17, I don't know. But I do have the top 7, and I'm going to go over those. I'm going to do my own review on all of those guns. I'm going to compare them side by side. I'm going to run them through my ransom rest. Thank you, Ransom, for providing that, Ransom International. So I'm going to do all that, and I'll decide on my own which one was the best one, including the APX. You just happened to mention it, and I just happen to have one right next to me. So anyway, guys, what I'm going to do is, because I love reading y'all's comments, and I have not read them hardly at all the whole time I've been sitting here. We're at 8:04 right now, so I need to get off of here and let you guys have a life. You know, I hate that I take up too much of y'all's time. So anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, but I'm going to go in here and read a lot of y'all's comments. I enjoy reading that. I'm going to try to respond to as many as I can. If I did not answer your question with something that you really like to have an answer for, just email me. My email is paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Again, paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. You guys can email me anytime. I will respond. I can tell you, we had a very full room in here tonight. A ton of interaction. I don't know how many comments are on here, but there's pages upon pages of comments in here. So, I think that's awesome. I appreciate you guys being that active in here, because it makes it fun, especially makes it fun for me to go back and read later on. So anyway, guys, appreciate it. Looks like we're going to have some decent weather down here in the south, at least tomorrow. Sunday, I think rain sets in. So I'm going to be out the range tomorrow filming a little bit, shooting some. If I see you guys at the range, if I ever see you at the range, if you're at a local range or wherever I'm at and we're shooting, I almost always bring decals, patches, some caps, some t-shirts, things like that. If you ever see me, please stop me. I know some people are really funny about wanting to approach somebody else, but some people have stopped me, and look, man, they leave with a handful of stuff. I mean, so if you ever have a chance to see me, or you see me out at one of the ranges or whatever, man, stop me, because I almost always keep a bag with me that has stuff in it, and I'd love to pass that on to you guys. I mean, I like doing that. I like giving my stuff away. If somebody wants something and I have it, you're welcome to it. Other than the guns that I have in here, of course. I'm talking about Legally Armed America apparel. But I do appreciate that. My email again, Dan Hacker asks, is paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Actually, let me give you a shorter version of that. paul@LAA.BZ. That's paul@LAA. B as in boy, Z as in zebra. That'll come to me also. No, Jarrett, not LGA. It's LAA.B. Now you can get me to say it wrong. LA.BZ. But guys, I mean, I always say shoot straight, be safe. Please, be safe when you go to the range. I know it sounds like a broken record, but I want to make sure that we all leave the gun range in one piece, because there's so many people out there that are unsafe at these gun ranges, and it's so hard to try to help somebody be safe at a gun range without coming off as being a jerk or something like that. But it is important. We got to keep our own people safe. And if you see somebody doing something unsafe, just politely, in a very non-aggressive way, approach them and try to get them to be more safe, and explain to them how they represent our community, the gun community, and that the people on the left are just dying and looking for something to happen with us on the right with a gun, so they can make a big deal out of it. Which, by the way, I'm not going to go into it, but the Aurora shooting tonight that happened over in Chicago, can you believe it? Chicago actually had gun crime, gun murders. Prayers for the family. I know the liberals don't like us to pray. They can kiss my ass, because I'll pray when I want to. I pray for the families over there, and all the people that are involved, and the people that were murdered, the cops that were shot, and all that good stuff. I hate that. I hate that kind of stuff. I know the left right now is happy. They're high-fiving each other because there's another, quote, mass shooting. The only thing is they're mad because it wasn't actually at a school. So you guys have a great weekend. I will see you guys next